So I'd rather not have NPCs moving on my turf. Back when New Horizons came out in what seems like forever ago, and we discovered that the game wasn't complete, but they were going to do updates that would slowly add back old things, it was kind of presumed that along the way, NPCs would be moving in and setting up shop just like Able Sisters did in New Horizons, and many other NPCs did in New Leaf. However, with updates being in the state they are currently in, I think such presumptions have dwindled down quite a bit, but I still from time to time see people posting lists of what they still need for New Horizons to be complete, and among those things are that NPCs need to be moving in, setting up shops. Back in the days of hopes and dreams, there were 3 possibilities being thrown around on how NPCs would end up moving back in. The first one was the Able Sister route, which was already mentioned. You know, they visit a couple times, you buy some things, they ask you, where should I put my shop? The second option would be like Gracie in New Leaf, where after meeting certain requirements, that NPC would move in with a current building. In her case, she moved in with Timmy and Tommy, and that way you don't have a ton of buildings being set up all over your island. The third option was the akin to the city in City Folk and Main Street in New Leaf, where there's just a separate area where shops can set up, so none of them are going to be moving onto your turf, but every NPC gets their own shop. At first, I really did like these ideas and agreed that NPCs should have their own shops. But as I've thought about it more and time has gone on, I've realized that it really wouldn't help New Horizons, and it seems to be just another thing that people want because, you know, it was in New Leaf before. First, I'm going to go ahead and talk about the general reasons why I don't want NPCs to set up a permanent shop. Then I'm going to go and talk about NPC by NPC, why I think they work quite well as a traveler. My biggest gripe with NPCs getting a shop is that they would no longer be a visitor. No one seems to mention this, but New Horizons is the first game in all of Animal Crossing to give you a visiting NPC every single day, which is just something I absolutely love about it. I get excited to log on every day and see who it's going to be in my town. Sometimes I'm disappointed when it's someone like LaBelle, but other days, like, you get that huge spike when it's red and you're like, yes, finally! That's just never been an experience with other games. Heck, in New Leaf, after you get Katrina and Gracie to move in, that only leaves you with 3 more visiting NPCs, which are Red, Gulliver, and Sahara. Kinda sad, in my opinion. And not only are there visitors every day, but New Horizons has more visitors than any other game previously. There were 7 in GameCube, 8 in Wild World, and then it went down to 5 for City Folk, but you had 3 that would visit in the city. Then there was New Leaf, where there was only 5 starting out, and you go down to 3. In New Horizons, there are a whopping 9 plus the 2 night visitors. And I love it. And I'm honestly super down for more visitors to join that roster. Of course, like, they would have to double up more like the night visitors double up, or you would need to have some sort of control over who comes, like choosing 2 or 3 people that come every single week. They need to rework it so you have some choice and it's not just random like it currently is, because sometimes you never see one person or whatever, or you see too much of a person you don't want to see. But in general, I think more would be good. Yeah, I just really enjoy visitors, and I feel like having less of them be visitors ruins the classic Animal Crossing feel. Maybe it's just me because I spent most of my playtime in the Animal Crossing world on Wild World, and I think that game is the second best in the series when it comes to visitors, next to New Horizons. So maybe, like, for me, visitors are very important in Animal Crossing. I don't know, maybe everyone else is like, that's not important, but I think it is. Another reason I disagree with the desire for more shops is my fear and anxiety that arises from loading screens. There was this game I played like 10 years ago that had a slim chance of crashing whenever there was a loading screen. So like now, just utmost anxiety every loading screen I go through. It's getting better. It's not as bad as it was 10 years ago, but still, loading screens, I get a little anxious. I get a little, are we gonna get through this time? Every time. I'm sure other people don't have as much fear about loading screens as I do, but I'm also sure no one entirely enjoys being stared down by a loading screen, right? And the problem with stores moving in that have daily rotating stocks is that you get a lot more loading screens added to your daily run-through. City Folk was fine in this regard, since the city only had a few shops with stock, and those that did have stock, they rotated like every week, so you didn't have to visit that often. But even then I dreaded it, because capping I know Captain's great and everything, but being forced to talk to him each ways, both ways, plus having a bunch of stores that really didn't have any stock made the city feel hollow. Like, they had a bunch of buildings and stores set up and things, but none of them were that useful, so you didn't need to go there, and the city just kind of felt dumb, even though it was in the name. New Leaf, on the other hand, went crazy with the rotating stock. In just one day, you would have the museum store, which is on the second level, so double those loading screens. Then there was Kix, Able Sisters, with LaBelle being in a separate room, so add a loading screen for accessories. Leaf, until he combines with Nooks, but add 4 more loading screens when Nooks upgrades, since they add another floor for Gracie, who, unlike in City Folk, now has a rotating stock, so you have to go there regularly. Continue down and you have Nook's Homes, and finally Club LOL, which you'll want to visit daily until you have all the emotes. 19 loading screens each and every day just to see if these people have something you want in stock. 21 if you count the Main Street loading screen. And people complain about having to go in and out of the Able Sisters changing room just a few times a day. They have no clue what us veteran players went through. My final complaint is that I don't want them taking up room on my island. I already have 10 villager houses to deal with, 5 buildings they force on me, plus, possibly update player houses. I know most people don't have that, but 1 to maybe 4, depending on your family. It's a lot to cram in. I do not want to be forced to put 5 more shops on my island, in whom's exterior I can't even choose. I also don't like the idea of NPCs moving in together. Like, if you get to the point where Kix has too much inventory to sell, just have Able Sisters sell it for him. You don't need them to combine buildings or anything like that. Like, when Leaf and Gracie ended up sharing a shop with the Nooks and New Leaf, it really ruined the atmosphere they had in their own separate shops. Being forced to be part of this huge mega shop, I mean, it was cool, but it just didn't have the same feeling, As for the separate shopping island, I am actually down for it, as long as there's not daily stock changes, so I don't have to paddle my butt or fly my butt all the way out to that island every single day. Now on to individual NPCs and why I don't think they'll benefit the game by settling into civilization. I'm gonna go ahead and start and go in the order of Main Street, going right from left, since I'm very familiar with that after recreating it in New Horizons. So first up is Celeste. I hear a lot of people saying they want her back in the museum doing constellations, which I heartily disagree with. I can't tell you how much it warms my heart and soul seeing her out under the night sky, the way she looks up at it and is like, oh, it melts my heart every time, and I think she's so cute. And it's just so wrong to put her back in the museum. In games past, she was like a bird in a gilded cage, staring out to the world beyond, and New Horizons has finally set her free. We cannot go back, people. I also love the revamp to the shooting star system that came with her freedom. Previously, there would be shooting stars, you would wish on a star, and only one wish would be granted, and it would be granted by having a piece of special Nook furniture come in the mail the next day. Really lame. It's so much cooler now, just so much more magical wishing on stars, only to have them wash up on the shore the next day and collect them and then use them to create these spectacular DIYs. I love it so much. So much. And the DIYs really are just amazing. Like the Zodiac series, I don't know if you've seen the New Leaf Zodiac series recently, but it's very kitsy. I think maybe 2 or 3 items were actually good, and the rest I would not put in my house at all. But the new revamped set, it's just gorgeous. The way the gold glimmers and they all go together. They did such a fantastic job. And the Star series, that series is wonderful too. Just so magical. It's worth every star you spend crafting it. The Space series, I wouldn't rant and rave about it, but it definitely looks better than it did previously. And I definitely am more focused on it now that there's a special way to get it. It feels more special. And the glow of the moon, oh my gosh. When I first put the moon out, I was like, this is not the moon we had in previous games. It's gorgeous. I just love the way it shines, especially at night. So I really think they did a good job. I love having Celeste being out and about. It gives me a reason to log in at night to see if she's there. I also love like the visiting parties she tends to spawn. I have Celeste in my town, come on over. Or if you have shooting stars, like it's a fun reason to get together and no other NPC does that. Little side note, the constellations I mentioned earlier, I really don't think they'll be coming to New Horizons. I don't even think they'll be coming to a mainline Animal Crossing game ever again. You might get it in a spin-off, but not a mainline. And just because the series is moving in a more realistic direction, they're getting rid of a lot of the quirky, kitsy things they did in the past and trying to make things look more real. And drawing lines in the sky doesn't make it look the most real. Also, with the way the stars are more realistic, it's harder to draw lines between them. I just don't see it happening. I'm sorry. You're gonna have to go back to Wild World and City Folk for that. Kix. Okay, so my problem with Kix moving in is that he just doesn't have the inventory to justify it. And Able Sisters did originally have like a smaller inventory before they moved in, so maybe he could expand his inventory when he moved in. However, I feel like they've done enough in the clothing department. If they are limited in their resources, I do not want them to expand Kix territory. I want them to put it into expanding furniture. Clothing, I feel very sufficient on. And even if they did decide to add more socks and shoes to the game, why not just give them to Able Sisters who already sell socks and shoes? If they add more bags, why not just give the socks and shoes he does sell to Able Sisters and have him sell more bags? The only case I can see is if they give him a bigger inventory of over 100 more items and they have to be bags or some sort of new accessory to the game, like in Pocket Camp they have earrings or they have these holdables like a teddy bear. So if you brought those into New Horizons, I could see Kix setting up shop selling those. But I really don't think that's gonna be happening. They'll either give you other ways to earn those or they're just not gonna happen in this game. I see it more as a next game thing and not this game thing. They're kind of behind as is. LaBelle, same issue as Kix, but also I think it would harm her story arc. In City Folk, we learned that it's her dream to become a designer, and that's why she's working for Gracie to like learn the ropes. Then in New Leaf, she moves back in with her sisters, which can kind of seem like a setback, but she's also selling her own inventory now instead of someone else's. So that's a step forward in her career. And now she's traveling the world, designing her own clothes, selling them, getting ideas. Like, she is going places in her career. And having her move back into your island, moving possibly into the Able Sisters store, it would just feel like a setback. The only way I can see her moving in is if she has that inventory that I mentioned with Kix, those accessories and the holdables that are in Pocket Camp. And if she got her own building, I don't want her moving in with her sisters. Then I would be okay with it, but I just don't see that happening in this game. I think that part of her story arc is best for the next game, honestly. Harriet, the pup that did your due. She has been completely replaced by the mirror, which I haven't heard anyone really complaining about, and it's not hard to see why, since Harriet had this kind of bullcrap quiz she would ask you, and then go to town doing whatever she wanted based on those quiz answers. She would ask something like, are you someone who prefers to stay in or go out? Or, you know, just random questions like that. And even the color. You didn't even get to pick your color directly. She'd be like, you warm tones or unnatural tones? And you'd be like, warm tones, I guess. And she'd be like, on this slider, choose. And like, if you did the top, you'd get blonde. And like, if you did the middle, you'd get ginger or whatever. And it was like, just a madhouse. Can you, it's just so funny to imagine doing this in like an actual salon. I wish I could get someone to volunteer to let me do their hair however I please, do whatever I want, and then do the same quiz and see what happens. And some of the hairstyles and colors were so ugly, so it wasn't even like, no matter what you get, you'd probably be happy. No, there were bad options that you could get. And you could change it every day, which is also, I guess, a downside, because with the mirror, you can change it whenever, however many times you want. But no, back in the days of Harriet, she had hours from 9 to 5, and you could only come get your hair done once. So that was also limiting. Anyway, it's not hard to see why people aren't really missing her, are very much enjoying the mirror. Anyway, with the mirror now being a thing, she is no longer the necessary part of a fully operating town. So I think she'd do great as a visitor. You know, she could visit, sell something, maybe wigs. That could be cool. She could have like a little setup she does. You take her bullcrap quiz from back in the day, Then she does your hair, and you come out with a wig that you can put on anytime you want. There's already several wigs from New Leaf that hasn't returned, so she could just come back with those bad boys. As a visitor, I think a stock of 10 to 15 wigs would be perfect, and you could just get one every visit. But if she were to move in, I think you would have to have a much bigger inventory, maybe like 50. Yeah, you get one a day, 50 is probably good. But the problem with that is, I don't know, can you come up with 50 different quality hairstyles for her to sell? I do not know. And even if you did do 50 when she was a visitor, because there would be a guide correlating to what you get and it wouldn't just be random like with Gulliver and things, you could have 50 and just expect people to use the guide and not get every single wig there was. I know some people would do that because completionist and everything, but for the people that only want a certain one, you know, they'd have control over it. So if you had a large inventory, it wouldn't be that bad for people to just pick the ones they want from it when she visits and ignore the rest if there's too much. But yeah, I just really like the thought of a visiting barber. Leaf. Okay, this is one of the few cases where I totally agree this NPC should move in permanently. At first I thought, guys, there's no way that's gonna happen because the flowers have already been made so much easier to obtain in this game than any other. Before was absolute madness. Back in New Leaf, Leaf's fully upgraded store, I repeat, fully upgraded store, only offered 2 flowers a day. And I'm not saying there were only 2 varieties you could get a day. I'm saying 2 whole flowers. You buy 1 flower, that flower is sold out. You buy the next flower, that flower is sold out, and you didn't get to pick the color or the type of flower. It was just random for that day, and then once you bought them, they were gone. Like, I don't know what they were thinking. It's madness. And the same went for bushes, which means collecting bushes were quite the feat back in the day. You guys don't know how good you have it. Anyway, despite the current shrubbery and floral situation not being ideal, it's so much better than previous games that they may just go, oh yeah, you can just stock up on florals when he gets in and you'll be fine. But you know, it could be nice if he moved in. In New Leaf, he did share a store with Timmy and Tommy, so it won't be that big of a stretch for him to do so again. And there is inventory he previously sold that is not currently in game, like all the houseplants and bonsai, so he could open up a little part in their shop selling the bonsai. Leaf used to also be the sole source of persimmons and bamboo shoots, so if he set up a store, maybe he could bring back all the different tropical fruit and maybe add more plants to the game besides just trees and bamboo. As for Animal Crossing's strange obsession with daily RNG, they could fulfill their need for that by not having him carry every flower, every shrub every day, but have it rotate out and, you know, every few days you would get what you need. Much better than hoping he comes to town that week with the thing you want. But yeah, could be nice if he moved in. Honestly though, having him as a visitor in the current system where Timmy and Tommy stock unlimited amounts of whatever flower they choose to have in stock is leaps and bounds better than the previous game. So it's like, yeah, it could be better, but I already feel a lot better about how it is now. Gracie. So Gracie having a shop for a bit there was quite cool, but totally unnecessary. In City Folk, her inventory only changed every 3 months, so obtaining the items isn't really hard. The actual challenge of it is saving enough money, which it's nice to have a store that isn't constantly rotating out its inventory, but also when you first started the game, you looked at everything and you're like, I'm never gonna be able to afford this. But you did feel that champion moment when you actually gotta buy a piece. Anyway, in New Leaf, it did get a little bit more difficult since she only put out 4 pieces a day, but you know, you come back daily for a few days and you end up getting everything and you can ignore her store for the rest of the season. That being said, she would work great as a visitor once again. She could roll up in a helicopter every now and then being like, hello peasants, I've come to grace you with my wares. Then she could have a few pieces from that season's collection on hand you could choose from, or maybe she would have a catalog and you could order however much you want. Then it would come in the mail the next day. You could even throw back to GameCube times and wash her helicopter for her, although maybe make it a little less impossible this time. And, you know, for cleaning the helicopter, maybe she gives you a 10% discount like she did in City Folk if you did the fashion check, or she would give you a random piece from that season's collection. Or there was this card series that was only available at the end of every season during the sale period. Maybe she could give you a piece from that series every time you cleaned her helicopter. Could be cool, could do a lot of things that are cool, having her be a visitor. Anyway, they would have to really rethink her store to convince me that it would be more worth it for her to have that store than for her to just come to me and looking all fancy in her choppa. Lyle. As mentioned in my Finding Jobs for Missing NPCs video, I definitely don't want Lyle to return as the face of the HHA. I prefer a faceless entity peeking through my windows, judging my house. I don't need to imagine Lyle doing it. I'd prefer not to. Anyway, in that NPC's job video, I gave him a really far-fetched job that needed like a building and things. However, I have a new one for him now that definitely doesn't need a building and isn't as far-fetched, and I like more, in fact. The dude could deal, and get this, house exteriors. Now I know Nook is doing that right now, and I love having the catalog, everything laid out, and you can go change your house anytime and everything. However, there are quite a large number of exteriors that were in New Leaf that are missing in New Horizons, and we need them back because they were fun and magical, and the ones Nook offers now are very just housey. Like before, you could have castle exteriors or like make it a sciencey looking building, or there was a large range of things you could do, and now it's just kind of house. Maybe this isn't intentional because, as I've said, Animal Crossing is trying to go in a more realistic direction. Maybe they don't want us to have fun buildings on our islands. But my hope is very much so that they are just holding it off for a special NPC like Lyle to pick up. So why would Lyle be the perfect candidate for this? He worked with Nook. I mean, they didn't work together, but they were in the same building. And Lyle was a salesman in Wild World, so you know, he's a salesman again, selling exteriors. He has previous experience with a guy that sold exteriors. I think it would be great. You know, he'd come to town, he'd have a catalog, you could pick from every single exterior. Once you picked what you wanted, maybe he would have you gather materials that day, something to set him apart from all the other NPCs that just ask for money or have some sort of quest, you know. You could be like, oh, I see you chose this very stone-using exterior, so I need this much stone or this much wood. Anyway, and a little bit of money, because he needs money to fund this operation and everything. So you get him the goods, and the next day, you have your new exterior. Be pretty freaking cool. And you may be asking, why not just add these exteriors to the current catalog? Or why would you want Lyle to be traveling? How about have him move in so you can always have those exteriors? To which I say, yeah, that'd be great, but we all know Animal Crossing loves not giving you what you want when you want it. You need a little bit of grind in there. So having these separate, you have your non-grind situation, and then you have your grind situation for something a little funner, and it's not even that bad of a grind. Before, if you wanted an exterior, you would have to check in with Nook every day and hope that he carried the thing you wanted, and he only got one of each thing in every day besides doors he got 2 of. So this is way better. Dr. Shrunk. Honestly, I think this is another case where you could argue it's better for him to move in than for him to be a visitor, but that ain't what this video is about, so I'm gonna abandon my idea for him moving in and talk about what he could do as a visitor. I think it'd be great for him to come back as a dance teacher. You see, previously they had him teaching emotes, but now that your villagers are teaching you emotes, which I'm on the fence as to whether or not I like it. I like it because you don't have to like go out of your way and seek it out, and you also get emotes way earlier in New Horizons when they're more useful because you're playing a lot more and you're playing with people a lot at the very beginning. So I think it makes sense, because before, when you had to seek them out yourself, there's, you know, beginning players that might have completely missed it, and then they're not getting emotes until the very end of the game, if at all. Anyway, back to Shrunk. In the good old days of New Leaf, after you learned all the emotes, he was like, congratulations. Then he taught you the Shrunk Shuffle. It was like this little dance you did from side to side. It was really cute. Also, did I mention that he ran Club LOL? And at Club LOL, if you press different things on like the D-pad or something, your character would do different dances, like the fist pump. I can't remember, I rarely ever went there, but I know other people really enjoyed it. So anyway, he would come to your town with these dance emotes. Maybe give him like 10, 15, or any new emotes you want to add to the game, like sitting, or, you know, all these bundles that they've put out, but they just had you spend Nook miles on them, which was really dumb. It's just such an uncreative way to spread new content into the game. So all those, it'd be great if in the future they went through Shrunk, or even if they went back and had, if you didn't have them yet, you would go through Shrunk to get them now. Would be cool. And maybe like to set them apart, like you don't pay him anything or anything like that, but you just gather up like 6 other villagers to do the dance class with you. Like Dr. Shrunk wants a little bit of a crowd to teach this new move to, so you have to go grab 3, 4, 5 other villagers to do it with. Then you get this cute little cutscene of you guys all dancing together or doing the move, whatever it is together. I think that'd be really cool. But yeah, I don't actually think that's gonna happen. It's more likely that he'll be a holiday NPC like Rover, if he does return at all, but him getting a building, yeah. Alright, Keke also shared a building with Shrunk, and I do not want him moving into the island because he's supposed to be some superstar that you attracted to the island, and it's like supposed to be super cool that he's coming once a week to your island. I think it would like take down his superstarship if he lived on the island and was there playing anytime. If they make a separate city thing, it would make sense for him to play there because it's like the city, so like his job is playing in the city. But moving into your town doesn't make sense. And I'm fine with the way they have it. I think it's cute having your community come together to listen to him play every Saturday night. Katrina! I'll be real with you. I think the little cameo we got on the Nintendo app is the most we're gonna see of Katrina. Like game by game, the luck mechanic that she operates on has been dwindling down, and they kind of just completely removed it from New Horizons. And if there's no luck mechanic, I don't see the point in her. I mean, even with the luck mechanic, I rarely saw the point in her unless I was tripping all over that day and had really bad luck. But I don't know. I guess they can find a new job for her. And I am fine if that new job does not involve her moving in, because in City Folk when she moved in and New Leaf when she moved in, she really didn't do much for you. If you had a bad luck day, maybe you visited, but she wasn't like a, I'm gonna go see Katrina every day of my life kind of a thing. Her business can definitely be regulated to an occasional visit. Okay, so that finishes on Main Street. Let's move on to current visitors that weren't previously on Main Street, starting with Flick and CJ combined because they kind of do the same thing. Having them move in would kind of defeat the purpose of them, because right now, like their purpose is you sell bugs and fish to them for 150% their value of Nook. And like the point is you're supposed to strategize, keep the high value things for when they come, then when they come, sell them all off and like bask in the glory of your earnings. But if they were there full time offering 150% all that, like, what's the point? I guess if they were on some distant island, then there would be some sort of a point. Like you have to go out of your way to sell to them, but I like things the way they are. At the same time though, the other part of their job is the whole figures thing, and that is a pain in the butt. You only need like 5, you're fine, but if you're trying to collect every single figure, or you need like 30 to set a scene, you're kind of screwed. But I think a better solution to that is just having them come every week. You know, maybe have them switch off every week. Maybe don't even have them count as a visitor. Like, you know, you can have Celeste, but that doesn't count as, you know, visitor for the day, so another person can come. I think that would be good for CJ and Flick. But yeah, having them move in, although very nice for figure collecting, kind of ruins their character too, because they're here to pursue their passions and their careers, and having them locked in a store all day, like, they can't do that. Flick needs to be out in nature, among the bugs, and CJ needs to be promoting his live stream by live streaming actual catches. Like, can't do that from a store. Gulliver/Gullivar. Do you really think this dumb seagull could manage running a shop when he can't even manage keeping his butt on a ship? Pascal! I made a whole video about this beautiful babe and his evolution, and I just want to say his current iteration is perfection. I love it so much. I wouldn't change a thing. Plus he's not really a visitor anymore. Kind of is permanently on your island, but he doesn't have a store, and he's not meant to have a store because he's a man of the ocean. He doesn't belong on land. Ooh, Red. Okay. This is one where I'd definitely be down for him having a permanent location, even if it's like City Folk and he only rotates his stock once a week. In fact, that'd probably be good for that person that was the only person on their island, so they can only get 1 painting every time he visits. Then they can go back every day and get 4 paintings, and it would work. However, I don't think he has a place on your island. I would want him either on a separate island, or maybe there's randomly a chance you'll find him on a Nook Mile Island. I think that'd actually be really cool. They need to expand what Nook Mile Islands are doing and give more incentive to visit besides just villager hunting and extra resources. Anyway, continuing to be a visitor though would be completely fine, provided they do what they did in Wild World and New Leaf and let you pick what day he comes. Because it's been over a year since he's been out and I still don't have every single piece of art. Whereas basically every other NPC, I feel pretty good about all their items. I don't feel like I need to see them anymore. Red is one I'm still aching for, so if you could set the day, you could just play the days he comes and finally finish your art collection. Can I also just say how mind-boggling it was? They've done away with this now because it was complete lunacy. But back when they added Leaf and Red and things, they made a schedule so that, let's see, 3 people would come every single week. I think it was Sahara, Label, and Leaf were the 3. Anyway, one of them was definitely not Red. And if you're gonna have someone visit every week, it needs to be Red. He is the one NPC that isn't selling you something aesthetic. He gives you something you need to complete one of the main missions of the game, which is finishing off the museum. Why? Why would they have him come every week? But then they decided these random ones, maybe it was Kicks, they were definitely ones where you were like, I don't need to see you every week. Maybe Leaf, but every other NPC you don't need to see every week. Besides Red and Leaf. Just so weird. So weird. So Sahara, in general, I feel like no one talks about her. I definitely haven't seen anyone being like, Sahara needs to move in. She's an NPC that flies under the radar, doesn't get any hate, doesn't get any love, just straight up apathy. Anyway, so I was thinking about her, and her moving in would be weird. Her whole shtick has been, I've come from a land afar, to you who are near. So her moving in would not work with that whole thing. She's supposed to be like a traveling rug salesperson. Like, her not traveling is weird. Her character is traveling. I will say, as the only place you can get rugs, you could maybe justify her moving in to sell more rugs, but she already sells 3 every visit. You can buy an unlimited amount. You can buy from the catalog. So unless they're about to add like 100 more rugs, I don't know if it's that necessary to have her settle down. And the rugs and wallpaper, I think they do a pretty good job of supplying a lot, because you get 1 each time, and then you have your extra mystery tickets to get a bonus one. And every now and then you have enough bonus ones to get a second one when she visits, so I think it's fine. I just wish they would reprogram her not to give dubs, because every time she visits, I have my fingers crossed that I'm gonna get that blackboard or that cafe curtain wall, and every time she stares deep into my eyes like she's so close, she's making a breeze on my face with her eyelashes, and she looks at me and she goes, I know what you need. A bank vault wall. Or if she's feeling particularly adventurous that day, she gives me a kisses wall. I don't know what kind of message she's trying to send me, but I've gotten these walls so many times. They really need to code for dupes to be lessened. Wisp, he is a ghost, so I don't know how he can permanently move in unless like he's haunting something. But I do really like Wisp as a character. I wish he was more useful than randomly giving you kind of crappy items. He's good for finishing off your catalog, provided you're only going for items under like 1,000 bells or whatever the cutoff is, so he really isn't that useful. Maybe one day he'll have his own exclusive line of items, and I will delight in him. Okay, on to the last few visitors that didn't have a shop on Main Street or return in New Horizons yet. Wendell. So I have this idea for Wendell that I am so in love with. Like, I'm quickly falling in love with Wendell based solely on this idea, and not because of anything he's done in any other game. So, you know, just the classic setting myself up for disappointment when no one asked me to. So my idea, basically, we haven't seen that many food items in New Horizons, even though tons were introduced in Welcome Amiibo. So I have a feeling that they're holding that back for like some big food update, and I'm kind of excited about this. And that's when they're gonna add more vegetables besides pumpkins and things, and they're gonna unlock cooking, and you're gonna be able to cook on like whatever stuff, like Keaton says you can cook on his popcorn machine, so apparently we'll be able to cook spaghetti on a popcorn machine. Anyway, Wendell fits into this very nicely, since from the beginning he's been a hungry walrus searching land after land for food to satisfy him. So basically, he's gonna roll up, you're gonna give him a food, he's gonna go, ooh, delicious. You know what, I just used this food in this recipe from this faraway land, and then he'll give you the recipe, and then you can cook it yourself, and I'm so excited. And I just want him to do it so badly. He's so ready to shine. He's been done dirty for too long. Alrighty, Phineas. So this guy has had 2 different jobs. In City Folk, he would visit in the city and he would give away a balloon or a pinwheel. Obviously, that's been taken over by the Fireworks Festival. Then in New Leaf, they had him giving out badges when you like accomplish certain things like catching so many fish or whatever. And that has been taken over by Nook Mile tickets. So I really don't have a job for him, because he's kind of a wild card. They could have him literally do anything, and no one is expecting him to move in. No one's mentioned it. I don't even expect him to return. He's probably going to be like a holiday NPC like Rover is, or Reese and Cyrus. So, didn't come up with anything for him. What do you want to see him do? Because, yeah, he really is just a wild card. I just hope they give him something fun to do, because I know he was always a sea lion of joy. When you saw him in the city and you were like, oh, balloon, or ooh, in New Leaf, I'm gonna get a new badge today. So hopefully something that makes people happy. And lastly, Katie, another person that no one expects to move in. But I was thinking about it, and it would be pretty fun if she moved in. You know, we have this story arc in the first part in Wild World and City Folk. She would get separated from her mom, and you have to reunite them. And then in New Leaf, she was traveling on her own now. She didn't need her mama no more. And now she's settling down, she's moving in. It'd be cool. I wouldn't know what she would do in your town. Like, maybe something to do with visitors, since you only got her before if you visited someone, and then visited someone again to trade her off, and she would give you an item. So I don't know how her settling in would do anything. I don't know, but I don't think that's gonna happen. And I really like her traveling between towns. It's just such a shame. This should have been like on their docket to do right away, if not already have out, because at the beginning we're all visiting each other and things, and you could have gotten all her items then, but now people have stepped back, they're not playing as much, they're not visiting each other as much anymore. So if they do add her back in and have her basically do what she was doing in New Leaf, which I think would be totally fine if they do that, I would actually enjoy it. You know, it's always fun when you get a Katie in your town, you're like, yes, I'm gonna get one of her items. I do wish she had cooler items though, they're kind of lame in New Leaf. In Wild World, some of them were good. But yeah, they don't need to do anything fancy with her, just actually have her in the game. There you go. Why everyone, with a few exceptions, have no reason to be moving on to my turf. I will say, however, that I totally don't blame anyone for wanting them to move in. Having all these little separate shops definitely creates more like atmosphere to the game, and that is missing when you don't have, you know, the setting and the song and things like that. Plus, having them move in creates more of a community feeling, but I don't know if that's necessary for New Horizons, because it's supposed to be a deserted island getaway sort of a thing, not a make a whole entire town as your getaway sort of a thing. I don't know. New Horizons has just really been into streamlining over atmosphere. I mean, Nintendo has said time and time again, game after game, that they've had to alter the way they design games in order to keep the modern player's attention, because our attention spans have become so short. And you can really see this in New Horizons, where they've cut out a lot of those little charming things that they're charming the first few times, but get really repetitive fast, like Harriet asking all those questions, Cap'n driving you to the city, you know, those things that it's like, oh, fun to go through, but once you've done it like 5 times, you're like, okay, I'm over it. Can we please just just move on. Hopefully in the end they find a good balance in New Horizons of adding things that add that charm while also having quality of life improvements that make it so you don't have to go through piles of text anytime you want to do a necessary task. Another benefit of the unlocking shops mechanic is that it gives you something to feel like you're progressing towards in game. Like when you move in as the mayor in New Leaf, you're like, wow, Main Street sucks. There's like 3 stores open. So it's really rewarding as you see them start opening up. Whereas in New Horizons, to get that same feeling, you need to exert way more effort coming up with your own plans and executing them, doing the terraforming, putting the furniture down and all that. Whereas in New Leaf, you basically spend money at shops and then wait some time and they open. So I can see how people miss feeling that rewarded for not that much effort. Seriously though, I really thought getting all the shops on Main Street was a really big accomplishment, but I recently did a speedrun only to realize that most of them are spend this amount of money of bells in this shop and then wait this number of days and it'll open, and that's it. I mean, there are some like Club LOL where he comes to you and you have to get 6 signatures to open up or whatever, and that's pretty fun. And, you know, takes your personal effort. Not that much effort, but you did something to accomplish it. But for the most part, Main Street just happens as long as you keep playing the game and wanting items. In the end, there's only 2 shops that are really difficult to get, and one is Gracie's. And hers is only hard because you have to wait 41 days for the second to last Nook shop to open up, then she starts coming. And then you need to do her fashion checks, which I don't remember how hard or easy they were to fail. I think I used a guide for it just because I was worried. But they're probably just as hard as labels are now, and I've never failed any of those, and I've never used a guide for those, so I don't think the fashion checks were that bad. And then you had to wait 30 days from the time the second to last store opened before they would open the 3rd store. So you have 70 days from the beginning of you playing to the store opening, so it feels like a long time, and you're also like being like, Gracie, where are you? Come so I can do a fashion check. And I'm sure if you fail a lot, it really sucks and it extends the time even more. And then Katrina is really difficult because you gotta visit her 20 times. And it could be any of the humans in your town, so if you have multiple humans, it's not too bad. But if you're just one human, it's really bad because she only comes like once a week, 20 times 7, 140 days. To get Katrina, you have to keep your attention on the game for 140 days to notice when she comes into town and to go to her and get a fortune. It's technically not hard, but because it takes such a long time, it feels like you're really working for it. Like, this is a big accomplishment. I mean, it is a big accomplishment to pay attention to a game for 140 days, but what I'm saying is New Leaf is artificially inflating how long it takes to unlock all of Main Street, so it feels like an accomplishment when you do it, but you're really not personally putting like personal time into making it happen. It's just happening by you existing long enough and putting in effort, little bits of effort here or there. Basically, I'm saying I like New Horizons progression, which is not something I feel like many people agree with. I know like it only takes 2 weeks if you're like on top of it and get it done, so it feels like it ends really fast because there's none of that artificial stretching out. But I like that they're actually having you work to do it. Like you have to gather the material for the nook cranny to open, and you have to craft all the furniture to get 3 more villagers to move in. You're actually doing something to progress in your island and not just waiting for time to pass. And I think for most people, especially those who haven't played Animal Crossing before, and it ends up taking a lot more than 2 weeks to do those things. I know. Oh my gosh. So my little sister, she's played Animal Crossing before. She's played every Animal Crossing game but New Leaf. And she rolls up, I'm watching her hit a rock to harvest materials. She hits a rock, she picks up the piece. She hits the rock, she picks up the piece. And I'm like, you just hit it over and over. She was only getting like 3 or 4 pieces per every rock she hit every day. And I was like, woof, that is a bad tactic. I thought everyone was at least at the tactic of keep on hitting it until it stops dropping things over and over and over. But she was pausing between each hit. Anyway, and then I taught her the whole method. And yeah, some people are like, it's so hard to get these materials. They might be doing that. Anyway, when I saw her tactics, it became very clear to me why it was taking her so long to get Nook's Cranny up and running. So when it comes to Animal Crossing and progression, I really hope they continue down this line and have a storyline and quests to do to unlock things in your town rather than just kind of waiting out the clock. Alright, thanks so much for hearing out the rantings of this Animal Crossing zealot. Normally I'd say I'd like to hear your thoughts in return on this subject, but I don't know how open I'm feeling to it. I don't know if people are gonna agree at all. I don't know. I'm open to seeing your likes and dislikes, that's for sure. If you think that for the most part visitors are better off staying visitors, give this video a thumbs up. And if you think that for the most part you want most villagers to be moving in, give this video a thumb down to let me know what you think. And I guess if you have lots of thoughts that can't be given in a thumb, then go ahead and leave your comment. One day I might feel like reading it, and I'm sure there's plenty of other viewers that would love to hear what other people's thoughts on this subject are. And as always, I hope you have the loveliest of lovely days.